Okay, so free response one, let me just get myself organized here for a minute. I just got through doing macros, so let me get that out of the way. I'm not confusing myself between the two. Okay, so over there. All right. Okay, so in the first one, you're going to be asked to identify a monopoly graph, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you should be able to draw one. I mean, for the AP exam, you a very high probability that they'll ask you to draw one, right?
Yeah.
I can't have you draw one on the final since we're doing it on Blackboard. So I'm just going to show you a series of graphs and ask you to identify the correct one. Okay.
Okay.
So you're going to want to you're going to want to identify the profit maximizing output and price, and I won't read this out loud to you, but you see it right there. That's kind of insulting. I know you guys know how to read. So anyway, this is it, and I want to show you a couple things about this that you may a little bit tricky, right?
Mm-hmm.
This part right here where it says explain how this firm continues to maximize profit if there is a change in demand for its product. So this is a review, and you've seen, I'm sure you spent a lot of time looking at, drawing, studying monopoly graphs, but the way they asked is a little bit tricky. So I want to sort of give you a little bit of help with that. So if we are looking at a monopoly that's earning a negative economic profit, does that mean that the average total cost curve is below price or above price? Average total cost. If they're making negative profit, like they're losing money.
Above the price.
Right. So that's what you want to look for. Absolutely. So you want to look for a graph that's got the average total cost curve right here above price. Okay. So now, how do we determine profit maximizing output and price, right? The key here, and I've said this over and over again, is where marginal cost equals marginal revenue. That's where we're going to set the profit maximizing quantity or output. And then we move up from that point to the demand curve, which is always going to be above. Now, when you're looking at these graphs, I'm warning you, they're going to be tricky. So look at the one that's got the right curves, right? The marginal cost curve is always going to be upward sloping. The average total cost curve starts out going down, then it goes back up. And the demand curve is always above the marginal revenue curve. So wherever the marginal cost curve intersects marginal revenue is where a monopoly is going to produce, okay? And then the price is going to be up here on the demand curve. Now, Eric and I were talking about how the difference between productive efficiency and allocative efficiency. And so I will just review that on any graph, on whether it's a firm right here that's in a perfectly competitive market or a monopoly right here. If price equals average total cost, then we call that productive efficiency. If the price is equal to if the price or the revenue is equal to the cost, right? So if price is the average revenue, right? Whatever you're charging is the average revenue, the revenue you get per unit, right? So if total revenue is price times a quantity, then average revenue is just, the total revenue divided by quantity, which is the price, right? So average revenue equals price. So if price equals average total cost, then that's going to be productive efficiency. Allocative efficiency, or the socially optimum output. So I'll say that one more time. The socially optimum output is also the allocatively efficient output, and that's going to be where marginal cost equals price or equals demand. Demand is also marginal benefit, right? They're one and the same. So where marginal benefit equals marginal cost right here, this point right here, right? That is the socially optimum output, or the allocatively efficient. So in a monopoly, because they charge a price higher than the socially optimum or the allocatively efficient price, and they produce an output less than the socially optimum or the allocatively efficient output, then we have a deadweight loss right here in a monopoly. Typically, we have a deadweight loss that is that triangle between the price going down to where a marginal cost equals a marginal revenue, up to the point where marginal cost equals demand, or where marginal cost equals marginal benefit. Okay? Does that make sense? Okay, now, what if? Now, well, first of all, how is this firm able to operate even though they're making a negative profit, or they're suffering an economic loss? How are they able to do that?
Isn't it because their accounting profits are still positive? Or no, isn't it because their fixed costs are still below?
You're all over it, because it is part of fixed costs. It's average variable cost, right?
Oh.
That you may not even see, but you have to assume if they're able to operate, you have to assume that the price is above average variable cost, right? Right there, see? Right there?
Mm-hmm.
This is a situation you'd have to have for a firm to operate in the short run, because they're covering their fixed cost, because average fixed cost is the difference. So average variable cost plus average fixed cost equals average total cost. Okay. So if they're able to if their price is above average variable cost, it means they're able to make a little more than if they just didn't operate at all. Because if they didn't operate at all, they would still have to pay average fixed cost. They still, typically, if you shut down or you don't operate, the fixed cost you've already paid it. It's still there. You don't get that back, right? So as long as their loss is less than average fixed cost, they're going to continue to operate. So, and the way that happens is if the price is above average variable cost. Okay, so that's that. Now the other thing is, what happens if this in the market demand for whatever this thing is? Let's say they sell, I don't know, let's say they sell smartphones. And what happens if the demand for smartphones goes up? The demand, not the quantity demanded, the demand. What changes on this graph? What shifts if demand goes up?
If demand goes up, wouldn't the demand curve shift?
It would. But here's the thing. It would shift, right? Let me extend this up. Let me make this. It would shift, but the marginal revenue curve would shift with it, okay? That's important. So the marginal revenue curve would shift as well, okay? Now, if this firm, actually that's a little bit too much. Let me put it here. Let me put this here. Got the wrong guy. Let me put him there. Okay, so now if we look at this, if this firm continues to charge the same price, right here, right there, if they don't change their, if they don't, I'm sorry, if they don't change their price and they stay where they are in the price, that's going to put them way out there. So let me make this shift not quite so large, so it's easier to see. That shift is too big. Let's make the shift smaller, because if I make the shift too large, it's hard to see it. What I'm trying to get you to see. Let me get this guy out of the way, because we're not worried about him right now. Okay. So let's assume that demand just went up, but the firm kept the price where it was. Okay. Right here. Okay. Now, let me think about this. Does that make sense for what I'm trying to get at? So you're gonna have to pressure up. Oh, sorry about that. I just had my brain just kind of froze up there for a second. I understand. So what happens? What happens if they don't change their output, right? And this is why it's sort of a tricky, right? So they're gonna just move up on the same and just come up here, right? And just stay right where they are and charge this higher price up here, okay? If they do this, now remember, the new marginal revenue curve is right here, okay? So actually, I can now I can shift this more. I can shift this more because that's hard to see, right? So if this is the shift, if demand for smartphones in the market, for the smartphones they make, and this is a monopoly, and they just say, okay, demand went up, so we're going to stay right where we are in what we produce, and we're going to just bump up to here and charge a price way up here, right? What I'm trying to get at is, are they still maximizing profit if they produce here and charge way up there? Are they still maximizing profit? Yes or no?
If they produce there.
If, remember, the new marginal revenue curve is oh shoot, can't get the right guy. The new marginal revenue curve is here, okay? Hint. Marginal cost equals marginal the new marginal revenue right
No,
there, right?
they aren't.
So if all they do is just stay right where they come on, can't quite get the right. There we go. If all they do is stay here and go straight up from there, and charges way high price, they're not at a point. They're not maximizing profit because they're operating where marginal revenue is higher or lower.
Marginal revenue.
The new marginal revenue at this point. I keep getting the wrong guy. Is it higher or lower than the marginal cost right here? See, here's the new marginal revenue after the shift, right? Right there.
Oh,
Isn't the new marginal revenue higher than a marginal cost? See it?
yeah. Well, if they just move their price up, then wouldn't it? Yeah, then wouldn't. I don't think it would be higher than the margin. Wait, because they aren't producing at where marginal revenue equals marginal cost.
They're not. No, that's the whole point. If all they did was just I keep moving the wrong thing. If all they do is stay at QJ, what I call them QJ, and go straight up to the new higher demand, if we look at where the new marginal revenue curve is, it's above it's above marginal cost. See, the old one, it was equal, right? It was equal. This one right here. But the new one, it's above. So if marginal revenue is above marginal cost and not equal, they can't be maximizing profit. So what they should do is lower the price to here, from there down to here, right? Now they're maximizing a profit because now marginal cost, see, look at it closely. It's kind of a small thing. I know I should probably blow it up a little bit. Let me try it real quick. Okay, let me give you one second. There we go. See? See, if they bring their price from, oh, okay. I mean, now I got, give me one second here. Okay, so if they bring their price, not there, from here down to here, they lowered their price, but they're making more profit because they only if they only maximize, if the place for them to maximize profit is where marginal, see if you get the right, is where marginal cost equals marginal revenue right there. If they're above it or below it, they're not maximizing profit. They only maximize profit there. So that's where, in some cases, they lowered, if this company lowers, the price comes down, but the quantity goes up, that's telling us that this is elastic. So that the percentage quantity increase is greater than the percentage price decrease. So they're going to make more a profit. Okay.
Yeah.
Or there. Okay. So that's that. So if you understand what I just did right there, then you're going to be able to figure out the question on the free response. Okay. Now, and then when you think about if they are going to if they're going to lower price and make more profit, and cost hasn't changed, right? actually, it might have changed a little bit. Let me look right here. It depends on where this is, right? If this is here, it just depends. I'm trying to remember how I explained that. Oh, yeah. Once again, my brain. Remember that when marginal revenue is greater than a zero, okay? So if you're anywhere on the demand curve, anywhere on it, where from here up, right? Demand is elastic because marginal revenue is greater than zero, assuming this is a zero right here, right at the bottom.
Mhm.
So this is gonna be elastic because when marginal revenue is greater than zero, that means as you produce more, total revenue is going up, right? When marginal revenue is zero, total revenue, which is a curve that looks like, I can't really draw it very well at all, but I'll try. Looks like this, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's really bad. But it's where it's where marginal revenue is zero, total revenue is that one point. It's the slope is zero, and it's a maximum, right? No change. Anyway, the thing to remember and not get confused about is that if you're anywhere along here, demand is elastic, right? So when you lower the price, your total revenue is going to go up because it's elastic, and the change in a decrease in price is less than the percentage increase in quantity. Okay,
Right.
does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's that one. Now, moving on. Well, how can I explain this one? Let me look at something. So if you have let me look at something really. Let me look at something real quick. Where'd it go? Where'd it go? Okay, so okay. So if let me just what time is it? I don't want to spend too much more time on this, but I'm going to come back. So let me just insert a table here with like 2 rows and okay, all right. But I can't change it. Yeah, stop. Okay, that's okay. So if you have quantity here, quantity here to t, okay, and total variable cost over here, okay, and this is a quantity of let's say 5, right, and say this is $200,
Mm-hmm.
okay, and I were to ask you what is the average total cost of producing 5 of whatever they are, let's call them widgets, right? Well, you don't know. You don't know what the total average cost is. You only know what the total variable cost is. However, if I were to tell you the fixed cost, right? And so what if I said that fixed cost, and I'll put that up here, fixed cost equals 100, okay? All right. Sorry about that. Okay. Now, if fixed cost equals 100, right, and total variable cost is 200, what's the total cost to produce 5? Total cost to produce 5.
1100.
Huh? Total
Well,
cost. This plus this, right?
yeah.
So it's a 300, isn't it? So
Well,
total cost equals 300,
oh,
right?
for 5. I thought that was for 1. Sorry. Yeah, that'd be for 3. Yeah, that'd be 300.
Right. Now, so if you're asked what the average total cost is, what is it?
300. Or no, the average total cost is 60.
Yeah. Right. So just be aware that when you're, don't get confused. What did I say? TBC average? What the heck? Yeah, right. Total variable. Now the other thing is, now the other part of this is you're going to want to be able to figure out the marginal cost of like say this is 6 and this is 7, right? Oops, not there. I always do that. Stop. Say this is 7. Now, don't get confused. With this fixed cost, because marginal cost is just a change, right? The fixed cost is set, right? So that doesn't change anything. That doesn't change. So if this is 300, and if the 7th widget total variable cost is 360, what is the marginal cost for the 7th widget? Marginal cost. Looking at that.
$60.
Right. So you get it, right? You get it. Okay. Now, and then the other thing is if the price is of a widget, okay, if the price equals 60, right? And this is in a perfectly competitive market, okay, perfectly competitive. I can't type. If price equals 60, and the 8th one, the total revenue is 400. How many widgets is this firm going to produce? 5, 6, 7, or 8?
Total variable cost 60.
They're going to produce where this is true, right?
Yeah.
Where
Wait,
is
so
it
if the
true?
price is 60, then they produce 7.
Right. You got it. Right. Exactly. So you're good. Okay. Let's see. Anything else I wanted to show you? Oh yeah. Now, is this number what? What number 3 was? Oh yeah. Okay. Okay. So now, if you had another firm that was producing at a loss, a firm in a perfectly competitive market, wouldn't it look like this? And why would it look like this? What's this showing right here? This is a firm right here in a perfectly competitive competitive market, okay? What is the gray area shaded?
The gray area is profits.
Say again? Profits?
Wait, the gray area. Wait.
Wait, don't tell. What's this?
That's the average total cost.
Is it above or below the price?
Oh, yeah. So they're producing at a loss.
They are. Right.
Yeah. Because they produce, yeah.
Okay. That's it. And just know that in this situation, and this is something you should be studying, all you guys, but in a perfectly competitive firm, the price comes from the market. So their demand curve is their price, is their marginal revenue, also is their average revenue. It's all equal, okay? And and once again, in order for them to produce here, then this average variable cost has to be has to be, okay, well, down here, okay, below the price, right? Has to be somewhere like right there, right? Do you agree?
Yeah.
Okay. The only other thing I wanted to show, or equal, it could be equal. It could be equal or above, right? So if it's right on the line right there, except let me just hold on just 1 second here so we can see it. Yeah, if it's right on the line, it could be equal. You know, it could be there. But if it's there, they're going to shut down because they can't even cover their average fixed cost. The only other thing I wanted to show you guys. Am I recording? I don't think I am.
There you are. It shows that you're recording.
Oh, good. Phew, scared me. I wanted to show you this. Right? Where? Not there. Whoa, not that. No. Yeah. Okay, this is a weird situation. But when you have a market that's taxed, right? A per unit tax. You've learned this. So let's say we're right here that the solid lines are the supply and demand in this market before tax, right? Solid blue supply, solid blue demand. The price in the market is what?
So the price in the market before tax would be $8.
Right. And if we said we're going to have a per unit tax of $2, that means that $2 is this much right there, okay? 8 to 10, right? So we would draw a line here, but then what we would do is, since we would move actually, we wouldn't do that at all. Okay, let's just take all this out. It's going to be confusing. Actually, no, I'll take that out. I was trying to think about something else. Let's take this out. That's confusing, and take this out for now, right? And just think about what the market is, okay? The market is there. Okay. And let's just build it from scratch. It's a lot easier. This is too confusing. So, no, what you would do is you would say, okay, actually, Actually, I did that right. That scoots up there. Yeah. It wouldn't be. Yeah, I did that right. What am I doing, man? My brain is, I'm tired. I've been doing too much tonight. I did that right. I don't know what I'm thinking about. Okay. So anyway, so you go up here, right? And that's what, and so the $2, so that's what tells you where to shift, right? You shift up to a point where now you've got, that is your $2, right? Tax. You shift to a point where that's there, right? And since this is very inelastic, you're not really moving a lot in terms of quantity, right? I want to show you the contrast. The reason I'm showing you this is I want to show you the contrast between an inelastic supply and an elastic supply. This is perfectly elastic supply, okay? Yeah. So when this happens, you're going to shift here, and the price actually only goes up a little bit, right? Because the price is going to be set where the new supply with the per unit tax equals the demand. So this is the new price right here, okay? And which we could say is, if this is 3, this is 2, that doesn't matter. That a number right there really doesn't, that's just confusing, okay? Because we're not sure what it is exactly. This is, but from here to here, from here to here, we know is the tax, $2, right? But you can see that the consumer is paying this much of the price, and the producer is paying this much, okay? Because the price went up from $8 to whatever it is up here, right? And then since the whole tax has to be paid, then this portion right here is shared by the producer, okay? That's what it looks like when you have a more inelastic, okay? You have a lot, you have a smaller change in a price for the consumer and a smaller change in the quantity because it's so inelastic. And think about it, and that's what it looks like on a graph. But when we talk about inelastic supply, it means that they can't change their supply that easily. So an example would be a firm that produces Christmas trees, real Christmas trees. If they had to increase their supply, it takes about 7 years to grow a tree, to sell, right? Or maybe 6 years minimum. So it's a very inelastic supply because they can't change anything for 6 years, right? If it's something else, it's easier to make more of, then it's more of an elastic supply. So let's say it's perfectly elastic, okay? Like this example right here. An example of a perfectly elastic supply could be the cable company that all they have to do is flip a switch and you now have a cable. It's already hooked up, and the last person who lived in your apartment had it. They moved out. They quit their cable, stopped their account. They switched it off. You moved in. They turned the switch on. So no cost, easy enough. They can do it, simply, so they can easily add more customers. That would be an example of a very elastic supply. So what happens here? What happens when there's a tax, right, of $2? Well, what's going to happen is you're going to have a price that goes up from 8 to 10 because this supply is perfectly elastic. So you're going to just take that $2 and just shift it over, right? But here's the thing. the revenue, the average revenue that the company makes is still 8, because they got it, because even though the price goes up to 10 and the consumer has to pay an extra $2, that whole $2 goes to the government, right? Because it's a tax, right? $2 per unit, right? So even though the cost goes up to 10 and the consumer pays the whole thing, because because the price went from 8 to 10, the average revenue that the supplier or the producer gets is still 8, because they have to give this a $2, that it goes to the government. Okay. So the question is, when you have that tax applied, what happens to total revenue for the company? Does it go up? Does it go down? Or does it stay the same?
It goes down.
Right, because their average revenue is still $8, and their quantity dropped. So total revenue is revenue, average revenue times quantity, right? So that's going to drop. So you're right, their total revenue drops. And the only other thing I wanted to point out is, remember, supply equals marginal cost, and demand equals marginal benefit, okay? And where marginal benefit is equal to marginal cost is the socially optimum or allocatively efficient level. So when the question comes about, does this tax create a deadweight loss? The answer is yes, because you're producing here at a lower quantity and a higher price than what is socially optimal, where demand equals supply, or where marginal benefit right here equals marginal cost. So you create this deadweight loss right here. Okay. Do you see that?
Yeah.
Okay. And that's about it. Oh, one more thing. If we're looking at this in terms of surplus, before the tax, you've got a consumer surplus that's equal to all this. Before the tax, this is consumer surplus, right? Because the price was 8, and this is the demand curve. What's if there's a perfectly elastic supply curve, a perfectly elastic marginal cost curve here, what is the producer surplus?
I don't think they have any.
They have none. It's absolutely zero. It's zero before the tax, and it's zero after the tax. Now after the tax, the consumer surplus shrinks to right there, right? Because now they're paying 10 and the quantity is lower. So yeah, the tax shrinks the consumer surplus from here to here, and that's why there's a deadweight loss, right? This rectangle right here is the tax. Whoops, not that guy. Hold on. Right here, this is the tax revenue right there. Okay. This is the tax revenue. This is the deadweight loss. This is the This is the oh man, come on, stop. This is the consumer surplus, but because this is perfectly elastic, there is no producer surplus. If this were upward sloping, wrong guy, sorry about that. Like this, right? If this were upward sloping, like that, put him back, right? Then this triangle right here, before the attacks, this triangle right here would be the producer surplus, right? Right there, right?
Mm-hmm.
But since it's horizontal, oops, but since it's horizontal, let me just undo myself back to where it goes. Yeah, since it's horizontal, it's 0. Okay, that's the only other thing. If you understand all that, you'll do fine on the free response. So, okay, thank you for coming in tonight. When do you think you're gonna take the final?
Our final is scheduled